So, you just started using LinkedIn Premium. Now what? Well, on your premium company page, you noticed around 7.5 times more page engagement and 5 times more page views. Well done. And now, new clients are messaging you. All because you're using LinkedIn Premium, which helps you get the business growth you want. Think big, small business. Think big. Start your free trial at linkedin.com/premium small business. That's linkedin.com/premium small business.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
A haunted building with more than a century of history. Witchcraft, spells and evil that cause chaos to a family. An unexpected death. An invocation for forgotten souls. Hello friends, welcome to the Chronicles of the Unexplained podcast. In today's episode, I'm gonna tell you 3 short stories very interesting that I want to share with you. Remember friends that they are 100% real. A haunted building. This first story was told to me by one of my husband's friends. He tells me that he experienced something that he has never forgotten. He says it was 2008 when in Austin, Texas, he was hired by a small local company to do some systems installations in a facility. He says that at that time, he was starting his own business, and since he had experience in the field of this type of system installation, the person who hired him told him that it would only be a few hours and that he could do it in his free time. The place where he would carry out this work is nothing more and nothing less than the old courthouse, better known in the United States as courthouse. This building dates back to the 1880s, and it was at the time the original county jail where felons were served. In the United States, execution by hanging was a legal practice in some states during the 19th and early 20th centuries. You can imagine how many lives were left there, considering that the original building with more than 140 years of history. Many experiences and memories kept in that 6-story building, and stories that are not exactly pleasant. It has the fame of being one of the most haunted buildings in the city. He tells me that in order to do the installation, you had to wait until the building was completely alone. In other words, as they are currently offices, he had to wait until it was completely empty, since the job consisted of using very noisy machinery and tools. He says that after 11 p.m. is when security withdraws and closes its doors. Well, he had to arrive after 12 o'clock at night, when he says that he was alone. There was no one else in the building. And he says that while he was using the drill, even though the noise was quite loud, he says that he managed to hear a metallic noise over and over again. Then he thought it was the echo of the drill, because it turned it off and nothing could be heard. He would turn the drill back on, and after a while, eventually there was that same sound. That's how the time went by, and he says that he didn't pay attention to that. He kept working. He says it was about 2 or 3 in the morning when he was about to finish. He says that being on that first floor in the room where he was doing the installation, the door was open, and on the other side he could clearly see at the end of the corridor the 2 elevators. He says that out of the corner of his eye he saw a movement, and it was the door of one of the elevators. It opened, but no one came out of it. He stood still. He begins to try not to think about all those stories that he had been told that happened in that building. He heads to the elevator door. He peeks out, sees that no one is there. Press the button to close the door. After this, he returns and continues in his work. He continues to use the heavy machinery, but he continues to hear that little metallic noise that he never managed to identify where it came from. He hurries up and tries to finish what he is doing. He tries to concentrate, and suddenly, about 15 minutes after the elevator opened, he notices out of the corner of his eye that the other door of the other elevator opens. He feels a bit of weirdness in the environment. He goes and sees that there is no one. Who was going to be if he really knew that he was alone in the building? But he had to go and find out what was happening. Although he felt a bit afraid, he had to do it. Again, same action. Press the button and the door closes. He returns to the room where he is doing his work, feeling uneasy. Well, no matter how much he concentrated, he says that he knew something was happening. He could feel something strange, but still try not to pay attention. Another 15 minutes have passed approximately, and he says that the two doors of the two elevators at the same time open. It is when he feels chills down his spine and begins to feel that he needs to leave that place immediately. He explains to me that it was not possible for the two doors to open at the same time, considering that those elevators aren't like the ones we have today that can simultaneously be programmed to open at the same time. He explains to me that these elevators were renovated, but that they are probably more than 50 or 80 years old, where the circuits were installed and there was no way for them to open simultaneously. He assures me of this because he knows about these systems and knows very well how they work. Well, when the two doors opened simultaneously, he immediately decided to leave. He says he didn't even return to pick up his tools. He says that he called the person who hired him the next day and told him that there was no way he was going to return when the building was empty, much less at night. The person who had hired him wasn't at all surprised by what he told him, because he assures that no one had even mentioned when they had been working on that building that everything had been normal. He says that he had already been told by all the people who had gone to do different type of installation. Each and every one of them had reported strange situations and that they couldn't continue with the work and had to run away from that place. Today, that building is still one of the oldest in the city of Austin, and although it was renovated in the 50s, people continue to tell unexplained stories. Witchcraft. The following story was sent to me by a friend from the gym I used to go. Asked me not to tell details about the place where this happened. She asked me not to reveal her name. It will be a first-person narration, exactly as she sent it to me. Hi Judith, I know that what I will tell you will be difficult to believe. I had never told anyone before. I didn't dare. I know that here they will not judge me as a crazy person. I have two sisters and a brother, and what happened to us was experienced by the three of us together with my mom when we were children. My dad had left home and my mom had to work to take care of us. At that time, it was a very difficult situation. After this painful event, we had to move to a small house, since there was no other option. After having lived at that time in one of the best subdivisions in the city, although we were not rich, but it could be said that we lived very well without economic problems. My mom was a housewife. There was no need to work. My dad had a good job. Everything changes as a result of him leaving, and that house had to be sold in order to pay off debts. In that house, we went through very hard times. We were there for about 4 or 5 years. One day, just like that, without further notice, an eviction order arrived. They took our belongings and put them on the street. Yes, practically on the street without us knowing what was happening. This was a little bit traumatic. A family friend lent us a house he owned. It wasn't very big, in fact, it was a bit small, but we moved there. By then, I had gotten a part-time job. I was 17 years old and still at school. We thought things were going to go a little better. Before going into the matter and portraying what my mom found, it's important to comment that during these 4 or 5 years that we were in this house, my mom was very unlucky with cars. And it's not that she had several cars at the same time, but that over several years she had different vehicles and always something happened. Breakdowns, mechanical failures. She got into multiple wrecks. She had accidents caused by bad weather or something was stolen. Tires, mirrors, rims, etc. Until these were practically useless. One day, my brother, sisters, and I made some comments about what was happening with my mom, all the time having problems with the cars. Obviously, they were used cars. She never had a new car. No, there was no money for that. The reason I mention this is important because we began to analyze everything that happened to us. One day, we suddenly started talking and we realized that it was not only the product of bad luck. As I mentioned before, it was one tragedy after the other. In that house, right after we had moved in, there were details. For example, there were always electrical failures. There was a short on some switch in the house. I don't know. My mom was trying to fix it along with my brother. It worked for a while and failed again.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Another detail was also the gas tank. It froze due to the cold weather. Many small details that at that time we never paid attention to. There were too many details that we came to the conclusion that it was too much bad luck. What also happened to us was that we had a roach infestation. No matter how much the pest control worked on that, or no matter what we cleaned, we never knew where they came from. The problem was never solved. Time passes and it turns out that one day my mom took her car to get it fixed. Something was wrong with it. I don't remember well. It made a noise as if something was loose. And it wasn't working as it should be. Anyway, my mom takes the car to be checked. And what was her big surprise? That the boy pulls out from under the car a rag. But was not a simple one. It was a strange piece of cloth with the shape of a doll, like the typical voodoo doll. My mom says that she didn't know what to do, but it was obvious that someone wanted to do harm to her. Apparently, this rag doll or voodoo doll had bits of photographs of my mom, photographs torn to pieces inside. There were strange things such as hair and other weird things. For those who don't know much about voodoo, a voodoo doll is said to have the image or represent the shape of a person. It is made with the characteristics of the person to be controlled. Within the beliefs of voodoo, it is considered that the doll is made to transmit thoughts, emotions. It is like a direct connection between the sorcerer and the person who wants to influence to produce changes in their lives through magical rituals. They are said to be African and Christian beliefs. Voodoo, in fact, is a religion that is still practiced in different ethnic groups, mainly in Africa, but also in America and Haiti. Well, continuing with the story. My mom, as I mentioned, didn't know what to do with that doll or piece of rag that was found. The person who found it told her that it was something very dangerous, not to touch it, to burn it, or throw it away out of the reach of the family, of the house. Another important thing worth mentioning here is my mom has been unlucky in all aspects of her life. It can be said that many events that have happened to her during her life can be concluded that she has not been lucky in that, since after her divorce, she had another partner with whom she would marry. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because he died under strange circumstances. He died very suddenly, a young and healthy man, passed away unexpectedly. This devastated her. It was too much of a coincidence to think that always, but always, something happened to their cars. Could it be that someone wished her something bad? We have no idea who it could have been. At first, we thought she would probably be my dad's new wife, but that had already happened years ago. After a while, we discarded that idea. Or maybe we wanted to think that it wasn't her. I don't know. The truth is that we never investigated anything about it. That weird doll was destroyed. And my question is if in the other cars where my mom experienced so many things, there would also be something like that. Or it was clear that it wasn't bad luck. It was that an evil was wished to my mom or to the family or to whoever drove those cars. Time passed. As I say, my mom never investigated. She trusted in God. And the only thing she has done and taught us to date is to do good and act in good faith. Always do it and entrust yourself to God. The following story made it into my podcast email, enigma@unexplainedpodcast.net. I want to thank my follower for sending this to me. I want to share this story that I was told during one of the sleepovers that I usually do with my friends, where we tell all kinds of experiences and paranormal stories. In a city in southern Mexico, a married couple lived. They had an excellent relationship. And although they had been together for several years, the couple had no children. They had been trying for a long time to get her pregnant. She, seeing that time passed and she didn't make it, decided to undergo treatment to be able to have children, since that was her dream. As part of that treatment, she goes into surgery, but unfortunately, there are complications and she dies unexpectedly. Her husband, with such a terrible experience, went into a very deep depression. And it was no wonder. Time passed and he couldn't overcome her death. Every day he cried and spent his time thinking about what could have been. Since they were believers, he always prayed to God for the soul of his beloved wife. The day of the death arrives and he visited the cemetery to bring flowers to his wife, to be able to feel her close, and he also brought a candle to offer it for her eternal rest. He was there for a long time, a practice that was common, because he didn't resign himself to having lost her. While he was saying his prayers and remembering the moments they spent happily, he noticed that in the bag he was carrying there were 2 candles, but he had originally asked for only one. It seemed very strange to him, and he thought that maybe in the store they made a mistake and put another one. He doesn't give it too much thought about it. However, he decides to use this white candle to make a prayers dedicated to the souls in the purgatory. In his prayers, he asked God for rest, not only for his wife, but for those souls that for some reason remained trapped and hadn't been able to transcend. He also prayed for all of those who have been forgotten and that no one has been able to offer them a prayer. As he made this request, he lit a second candle. After this, he went home. A few days passed. Then he noticed that every day there was a man with a certain humble appearance, but that nobility was visible in his eyes, and he was standing in the same place near his house. He always saw him at the same time and in the same clothes. Then he thought he was a homeless. He is left thinking that maybe it would be good to approach the man to ask him if he was okay, if he needed something to eat. The next day he was determined to ask him. However, he realizes that the man was not there. The next day he had a dream, and in that dream was that same man, the one he had seen several days in a row. It was right at the foot of his bed, and he had a white candle with him. He told him that he had been trying to communicate with him, and that he hadn't been able to do it. He told him that this was his last opportunity to thank him for what he had done for him, lighting the candle and having offered his prayers so that God would help him and 10 other souls in purgatory to come out of limbo, that they had been stuck and forgotten there for a long time, and that he, with his great heart, asked God to give them relief, and that he, as he is so merciful, listened to him and had freedom to rest in peace. Thank you very much, repeated to the man, and also wanted to tell him to be calm and not to worry about his wife. He told him that she was a good woman and rests in peace in a wonderful place, where even though you can't see her, she is always taking care of you. When you want to see her or just feel her, all you have to do is look at the sky and you will find the brightest star. It's her, lighting up your life and taking care of you. When the man awoke from that dream, he felt tremendous peace. He felt that God had sent him a word of encouragement for his very broken heart. His soul was comforted. He didn't feel that anguish and sadness of having lost his wife, and he thanked God that he was able to help free those souls from purgatory. If you liked the episode, please share it with someone you know loves paranormal or unexplained stories. Follow me on different podcast platforms to receive notifications whenever a new episode comes out. Follow me on social media where I share previews of new episodes before they are published. Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube as unexplained.enigma. Facebook, Chronicles of the Unexplained. Thanks for listening, and see you all in the next unexplained story.